All right, everyone. So I'm kind of getting in the habit of doing this. I basically may have stated some things during my video that I may have either had misinformation or not full information. So something in this video that I wanted to explain was I talked about voltages crossing your heart that could possibly stop your heart. Um, so I did a little bit of research, tried to get some better numbers. Everything that I found that pretty much any voltage, whether it's DC or AC, anything at 100 milliamps, which is zero point zero 0.01 amps, is considered dangerous, and anything that is over 100 milliamps is considered lethal. So I made the comment in the video, or I made a comment in the video, and I'm not 100% sure what my information was, but that is what I was able to find. So I wanted to just put that out there and correct what I stated in the video. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Hey, it's Cam with the Mad Redneck Scientist. So if you watched my other video about my electromagnet that I'm working on, I made a statement that if my math is correct, this magnet shouldn't draw more than, I think it was 3 or 4 amps. So I'm going to put that theory to a test today, and let me show you how I'm going to do it. I went to one of my local hardware stores, and I got a fuse. Basically, it's a fuse holder, and I have fuses ranging from 30 amp all the way down to 5 amp. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the 30 amp, and I am going to connect the fuses and hook up the magnet, and hopefully everything works well and I get all the way down to the 5 amp fuse and it doesn't blow. But like I said, last time that I did this, I found out that it wasn't necessarily correct. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the 30 amp fuse, and I'm going to try to see if I can set this up so you can see it here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to throw each fuse in here, and we're going to see what happens. Of course, these are a royal pain. Alright, so here's the test of the 30 amp fuse. Seems to be working perfectly fine, hasn't blown. And we will just make sure the magnet is actually energized. Yep, magnet's energized. So the 30 amp fuse didn't have a problem. Let's go to the 25 and see what happens with that fuse. Alright, magnet's energized. Fuse seems to be holding perfectly fine, nothing blown. So let's skip the 20 and the 15. Let's go straight to the 10 amp, and let's see what happens with the 10 amp. My rod done ran off on me here. 10 amps holding it, magnet's energized. Doesn't seem to have an issue. So far it seems to be doing well. Now we're going to go to a 7.5 amp fuse, and let's see what happens. She's energized. We'll leave it set for a minute, see if she blows. So still, yet again, with 12 volts, I can still remove the bar off the magnet. It doesn't have a very large magnetic field. Well, it seems that the 7.5 amp actually works perfectly fine. Let's go to the 5 amp. So this is a 5 amp fuse, and I will show you, and so you can verify that. You can see that there. That's a 5 amp fuse. And I'm not doing anything special for this magnet from what I did the other day in my other video. She's energized, and fuse hasn't blown. And just to show you, magnet still holding the bar, fuse still hasn't blown. I'm going to disconnect the fuse and I'll show you that the magnet is actually energized. Well, as you can see, so far it appears that our math is correct and there's no problem running a 5 amp fuse for this particular magnet. So something I want to point out and something I want to state to any of my viewers, when you're working with any type of electrical current, DC, AC, 5 volts or 600 volts, make sure that you're always extremely careful and make sure that you take the correct precautions. You want to make sure that you're not going to get hurt, make sure you're not going to damage anything or start a fire or anything like that. So as much as a lot of my projects are pretty simple and they could be very easily duplicated, there are a few things that I will tell you that I would highly recommend to not do at home. And that is going to be one of the things I'm going to be doing later on in this video. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my magnet from a 12 volt DC source and I'm actually going to jump it up to a 48 volt. 12 volt source, I mean, it can be deadly in the right circumstances. 48 volts is, you're going to start feeling a shock from 48 volts DC. The thing about DC current is it doesn't let go. And what I mean by that, for example, if you get shocked by 110, 115 volts, the reason it's AC current is because it actually pulses at 60 hertz in the US. So it pulses 60 times a second. Well, that gives your muscle a split second to be able to relax or let go and to pull away from a AC source. The thing is with DC, it doesn't have that pulsing. So if you get electrocuted or shocked with DC voltage, and let's say that it's in your hand, if you get a DC voltage, it grabs a hold of your hand, your muscles are going to contract, and there is no pulsing to give you that opportunity to let go. So DC voltage can be very dangerous. AC voltage can be very dangerous. So what I want to point out is this is not something that you want to try by yourself, especially if you don't know anything about electrical principles or this is something that you've never done before. This experiment is something that's very easy to do, very simple to downscale, to be able to try yourself, be able to teach kids. This is something that is very simple to do. The scale in which I am at, I would highly recommend starting off at a much, much smaller scale and getting yourself familiar with the principles and how things work before you try to jump straight into something at this kind of current. So without further ado, I'm going to get this set up and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so here we are. I just set up my batteries and I'm going to do my best to show you what kind of voltage we're running here. Well, it turns out I didn't have 4 fully charged batteries, so I'm not going to be at the 48 volts that I thought I was going to be at. So let me try to show you here what I'm actually going to be at. So let me just down for a second. Alright, so see if I can get my meter lead to hang out and make contact here. Okay, so as you can see, I have 4 batteries in series. The first battery is 10.8 volts. You add the second battery, 21.44. Add the third battery, 26 volts, so you can tell that battery is actually pretty low. And when you add the fourth battery, we're right around 31.5 volts. And like I said, this is 31 volts DC. So this, you can get a pretty good shock out of this, and this could possibly even hurt, and in the right situations could actually kill someone. The reason I say that is because it takes less than, I believe it's less than 1 volt. I don't remember the amp rating, to basically cross your heart, and it can actually stop your heart. So that's why I was telling you, you have to be very cautious when you do stuff like this, and you have to be aware of the kind of things that you're doing, and you have to be aware of the dangers that are involved. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue here, and I'm going to hook up the positive lead of these batteries to the electromagnet. I'm going to take the other lead, or my other wire here, that I thought I had stripped. I'm going to strip the ends off of it. And I'm going to show you what, so apparently 31.5 volts will be on this magnet. So something I want to point out is that if you watched my other video, I showed you the difference between 12 volts and 24 volts, and you can obviously see and hear a difference when you go to attach the metal, or when the metal rod is attached to the magnet. 12 volts was actually relatively weak. You could easily pull the metal rod off, as I showed, I believe I showed it a little bit ago. So now I'm going to show you what happens when you up your voltage. Well, with an electromagnet, you have to be aware when you up your voltage, you have a lot more heat that needs to be dissipated. So you need to be careful about how long you run something like this, so you don't melt the wire casing or the windings inside your magnet. So let me see if I can get this set up here so you can see what's going on. Okay, so you should have a clear view of the magnet here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you at roughly 10.5 volts what this is going to sound like, and I'll jump between each voltage level so you can see the difference between the magnetic field. So this is just the 10.8 volts. I mean, it holds. You can obviously, you can pull it off, or at least break it free, and pull it completely off. So now I'm jumping up to the 21 volts. Much harder attraction. I mean, you can pull it off, but it's definitely not easy. This one was the 36.75 volts, I believe this one was. So this now has 3 batteries. Obviously, the more leverage you have, damn near can't pull that off. Now I'm going to go to the, I believe it was the 36 volt mark. I should not be able to pull that off. So let's look at our voltages, and let's see if one of these batteries is creating a drain on the rest of the batteries here. Alright, so now, what is our first battery at? First battery is at 10.6. Our second battery has actually dwindled quite a bit, and it's still dropping. Our second battery is right around 3 volts. Okay, what is our third battery at? Our third battery is at 5 volts, and it's staying relatively stable at 5 volts. Now, what is our fourth battery at? Wow. Yeah, I need to get some better batteries. My fourth battery is at 4.5 volts. And our total voltage for all 4 batteries is now at 30.91 volts. So I'm definitely going to say our second battery is bad. It could even have a bad cell in it. And the other 2 definitely need to be charged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect these 3 red top Ultimas, and I'm going to see if I have a couple other batteries that have some better voltage, and we'll try this again. I'll be back. Alright, so I got some different batteries here, and I will tell you what our voltages are to start out with. So our first battery is 10.8. Second battery is 10.1. Third is 10.7. And our fourth battery is 10.3. So the total voltage output is 41.9 take or give. So basically we're right around 42 volts. So there should be a pretty significant difference between our last experiment and this one. So there's the magnet, and we will run back through the same process doing 1 battery at a time, and we'll see what the difference is. So this is just the first battery. It's about 10 3/4 volts. Still works. Now this is going to be the 2 batteries, should be right around 21 volts. As you can see, now that we have some decent batteries, I can't push it off. I can roll it, but that's about it. Alright, so now we're going up to 3 batteries. Now this was about the equivalent of, I want to say this was right around 32 volts. I mean, other than rolling it, and I can't roll it as far on the magnet. Yeah, I can't get it to budge at all. Alright, so now this is our last volt. This is going to be with our last battery. And let's see what our total voltage is with the last battery connected here. So our voltage level right now is 41.2 volts, and it's slowly climbing back up as the batteries start to settle back out. We're already at 0.25 volts. So let's see what this is going to be like with this magnet. Well, as you can see, even with significant leverage, I can't get it to come off until I disconnect the power source. So something I wanted to show you. So this is what happens when there's all that stored energy in the coil. you get quite the large spark. And that's that excess energy that's in the coil that's trying to dissipate when you disconnect it. So this is why I was saying in my last video about having a flyback diode, because that spark, I don't know if this will focus on that. So you can kind of see along the top of the terminal here, you can see right there, here, a couple other little spots. That's from when I disconnected that lead and it arced out against that terminal. So now that happens inside your relay every time you energize or every time you de-energize an electric magnet or electromagnet. So the importance of having a flyback diode is that it is to help prevent that from happening. Now the thing is it's kind of a trial and error for myself. I'm sure there's someone out there who can calculate exactly what size diode you need, but I am unsure of the math or the equations that you would need to determine that. So the diodes that I had on the last one, I'm very confident they're not going to work if I bump it up to 48 volts. So I'm going to have to do some research, see if I can find some diodes, and be able to try different rating diodes to find out which ones last, which ones blow immediately, so on and so forth. And like I said in the first video, I actually caught one of the diodes on fire within the first time or two of discharging the magnet. So that's the kind of thing that I want to warn you about when you do these kind of experiments, is you have to understand what you're dealing with and what the possible consequences are if you don't have the right equipment. So I'm basically going to do my best to show you what it is exactly that I'm doing, and I can give you a parts list for certain components when I get them, so you know where to start out with your own experiments. I appreciate you guys coming out and checking out my channel. I'd really appreciate if you guys subscribe and keep up to date with my projects. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, my email will be in the description of the video. So until next time.